Hello! Welcome to episode 117 of the Craft House Magic podcast. My name's Ellie and I'm coming to you from Norwich in Norfolk in the UK, and today is the 22nd of May. So welcome everybody. I hope you've all had a lovely crafty week since the last time I've spoken to you, and I'm here to share all the things that I've been making in the last 7 days. So today I have some knitting, I have some sewing to show you, which includes some hand stitching and also some dressmaking. I have a few confessions. Oops. I have a gadget to show you, and I have quite a few questions from the Ask Me Anything thread. I think I'm going to do just a couple today, and I'll leave the rest till next week because I've got a lot to get through, I think. And also at the very end of the podcast I'll go through all my new colourways that I've got to go in this week's shop update. This week's shop update is tonight, the 22nd of May at 7 PM, so watch out for that. You can find me on Instagram, Ravelry and Facebook as Craft House Magic. I'll leave the links down below. And also on my website where I have my online shop, I sell hand-dyed yarns, project bags, stitch markers, knitting needles and also fabrics as well. We have a couple of Makalongs in the Ravelry group. So we have the What a Lot of Potter Cowl, which I'm hosting with the lovely Becky from the Back to Blighty podcast. And we're knitting all the things from the Harry Potter Knitting Magic book, which I've shown you so many times, so I won't get it out again. But we're basically knitting anything from that, and the knit along goes until the 1st of June, so you still have plenty of time to enter. I have the discussion thread in my Ravelry group, and Becky has the finished objects thread over in her group, so don't forget to get your finished objects over in the finished objects thread, because we will be drawing prizes from there. But you still have plenty of time, so don't worry. Links to both of the groups are in the down bar as well. I also have the spring shawl along going on, and basically we're knitting any shawl, or to be honest, any scarf as well, because I think that counts as a shawl. And it can be knitted or crocheted. There's been so many lovely projects in there, and so many ideas to cast on more shawls really. And I also uploaded several videos, or 5 videos, on all my shawls that I've made, just to give you a bit of inspiration for the knit along really. So hopefully that helps. And I split it up into sort of shapes because I thought that'd be most helpful, because there was 31 in total, and I thought sticking it all in one video might be a bit boring, so little segments to sort of break it up a little bit. And I'll leave links to those in the down bar as well. So let's get on with the good stuff, the knitting. So I've cast on a new project, which is a bit naughty really, since I have so many on the needles already. But I wanted to test out this new base before I get it in the shop. So it's a really fluffy yarn, basically made of alpaca and silk on a lace base, so that I can sort of use it to hold double, because there's quite a lot of projects at the moment that are out there where you need to hold things double with a fluffy thing. So I wanted to get some fluffy lace into the shop, but I wanted to knit with it first. So I chose my Holding Out for a Hero colourway, and I dyed up a skein for myself in the new alpaca and silk base, but also, oops, but also on my Merino nylon base as well. So I'm holding these double to knit a lovely hat, and it is the Everyday Slouchie Beanie. By the lovely Trysten, who does Dragon Hoard yarn, but she's also one of the girls at the Yarn Cafe podcasters. And that's how it looks so far. I don't think you can really get how lovely it is, because it is really soft with that little bit of a halo. The pattern is actually, there's a double brim on this, so right up to there I've actually knitted that bit twice and then stitched it together, or knitted it together, and now I'm on the sort of main part of the hat. And I'm hopefully going to be wearing this a lot. I'm not a very good hat wearer, but I thought because this is nice and slouchy at the back, it might be a bit more flattering on me. So I'm excited to see how it goes, and also it's fun to try out a new base as well. So I'm thinking of getting this into my shop by next week, if I get everything sorted. There are a few other bases I want to get in the shop as well, so stay tuned for next week's podcast to find out. I will leave links to the patterns and yarns in the down bar as well for all the projects. What I'm doing now is I'm doing the show notes in the down bar, but I'm also putting them on the website because one time I had everything on the website and I think people got used to it there, and then I've switched to putting it in the down bar because a few people found it difficult to find it on the website, but I think if I put it in both places then everyone wins. So that's my first project I've been working on. I've also been working on my Stephen West shawl, the Jigshawl puzzle, and it's difficult to show you this now. So that's the sort of top corner on the right, and then I've knitted down here, and then I've been working on this point bit since the last podcast. I think I've basically done this section here, this one here, and this point bit. And we have this colourway is Come On Eileen, and this one here is Rock Me Amadeus. So it's like a yellowy green colour with a bit of a zing, and this one is like a pale blue, grey, and little bits of purple in as well. And then this bottom one is I think We're Alone Now, nice bit of bright pink. And if I can try and hold it up so you can see the shape of it, it's supposed to be sort of, I'm using my boobs now as a bit of a shelf. Oh dear. So that's how it looks, but I've obviously got this bit here is another sort of triangle shape, but it's getting there slowly. I think I'm on about section 18 now, something like that. And there's going to be some I-cord around the edge, I think, to finish it off. So that's why I've got some cables holding some stitches and one of these clover stitch holders as well. I will leave a full list of the colours that I'm using for this shawl in the down bar as well, but they're all basically my colourways, the last mini set that I brought out, mini set 4, with the addition of the Come On Eileen colourway. But I will list them down below, and also on my Ravelry project page as well. So that's coming along nicely. I have noticed that I say that's coming along nicely so much. Oh dear. So that's what I've been mainly knitting on this week. But I did pick up the Passeggiata shawl that I showed you that Liz had helped me knit last week. And this pattern is by Janina Cameo. And I did sew in the ends and give it a nice block so that you can see the shape properly. And isn't that lovely, those stripes? Just, it's sort of simple, but so effective. When this was sort of knitted and not blocked, it had a massively pointy bit in the centre here, but that's smoothed it out nicely now with a bit of a block. It's a really nice long shawl, so it's sort of just, it's over my hand span, my arm span rather, and that much. So possibly, I normally measure 1 metre from here to here, so I think that's probably about 2 metres long, yeah. Really nice shape, I think. I'll probably wear it mostly around my neck like this, nice and long around the edges, and I think you can never get enough turquoise. Probably wear it like that, but you could also wear it around your shoulders as well, like so. I feel as if it's a bit dressier when I have it on like that. I've got my hair stuck in the back, so there we go. Ta-da! So Liz did all the hard work on this, so obviously because we haven't been leaving the house as much, because Liz is retired, she wanted some things to do, so I've been sending her some knitting projects to do. So she finished this last week, but I had to undo the bind off because it wasn't stretchy enough to stretch the bottom edge out, so that it formed this nice shape. If it was just done in the standard bind off, which Liz had done initially, it just wouldn't stretch out enough, and you wouldn't get that sort of nice straight edge at the top and sort of bowed at the bottom once it had blocked, or to actually block it out. But I'm really pleased with it now. So that's that one, and she'd been busy this week since then working on this other cowl. So this pattern is called the Arabella Mobius cowl, and it is a huge tube. I've had this. Ugh. There's a bit of a twist in it, so it's you have to sort of work out which bits to keep to the front. So that's what the pattern looks like. It might be easier if I use my boobs actually so you can't see through it. But isn't that a lovely pattern? Isn't that a lovely pattern? So it's the Arabella Mobius Cowl by Richardson, and it's actually a free pattern on Ravelry, and I got this as a kit with the yarn that's Rowan Alpaca Classic, which is a DK weight yarn, and it's made of alpaca, 57% alpaca and 43% cotton, and it's basically a massive tube. So Liz has knitted this up for me. And it's basically knitted in the yarns that were sort of listed in the pattern, but she did run out of the grey on the one side, if I can try and find it. So on the very bottom edge she'd run out of the grey and just did from here to here, just in a little bit of the teal colour, just because she'd run out really, which I don't think you'll be able to notice. But just in case anybody else is knitting this and they're like a loose knitter like Liz is, you might end up using up a bit more of the grey yarn. You might want to purchase some more, or if you're like me, a little bit of turquoise at the edge, doesn't matter. So it's got a bit of a twist in it. I think I'd wear it mainly just round your neck twice. See if I can adjust it in front of the camera. In the picture she'd got the twist at the front, so because I'm doing it on camera I probably won't be able to get it correct, but you can get the gist of it. It still looks nice even though I've got it all higgledy-piggledy. Lovely and warm for the winter time. A bit warm now to be wearing it really. But there we go, ta-da! So that's Liz has finished that for me, and I've sent her another one of my projects which I've modified considerably from the original pattern, so it'll be interesting to see what that looks like. She might get it done for next week because she seems to be whizzing through these projects. She keeps saying, Ellie, can I have another thing to do, please? I don't mind. I love seeing new things, and also it gives you guys more things to see on the podcast as well. So thank you, Liz. So I will leave links to the yarns and the patterns in the down bar as well, but that was the Arabella Mobius Cowl by Richardson, and the yarn was Rowan Alpaca Classic, and I'll show you the label actually. There we go, so that's the Rowan Alpaca Classic, and they came in balls of 25 grams. That's all the knitting I've got to show you this week, but I do have some sewing. So last week I showed you that I'd done a few of the little sort of flower groups of hexagons, and I've actually finished the front of my little sewing case where I'm following a pattern by the lovely Emma from the Vintage Sewing Box. I'm hoping I'm showing you the right way up. So that's what I've done. This is the front sort of cover of it, and these are all 1/2 inch hexagons, and they're 1/2 inch hexagons along the sort of edge here, so that's how you measure the size of the hexagon, which I didn't realise before. But I've used all Lynette Anderson fabrics, which I think are absolutely lovely, and they're actually the fabrics I used for this wall hanging here, and that was a kit that I bought from Lynette Anderson for the embroidery, and then I've used the fabrics to go around the outside to finish it off. It was supposed to be a cushion, but I did end up doing a wall hanging instead. So I've got these fabrics left over, and I must have done it a couple of years ago, so that's how I've got on. You can see the papers that I've used for these are actually ones I've had free in a magazine that happened to be the size that I needed to do this sewing case, so I've been using those, but you can buy them already pre-cut because I think you're more likely to get a nice accurate fitting of the hexagons together when they are already pre-cut on paper. So the pattern is a lovely pattern by Emma from Vintage Sewing Box, and it's basically for a sewing case that is just bigger than this shape of cluster of hexagons, and it's a place to keep all your bits and bobs for hand sewing inside. So I'm excited to get to the next stage now. I think there's some hexagons on the back, but they're not as time consuming as these, but I might actually start with the construction part this weekend. We shall see. So that's how I'm getting on with my hand sewing, and I have been doing a spot of dressmaking. So Barbara, would you like to come over? Welcome, Barbara. So yes, you guessed it, it's another Frankie t-shirt. So I had some scraps in my fabric stash that I wanted to use up as a thread. And I literally just got enough fabric out of this last scraps I had to make this t-shirt. I'd made one of the Tilly and the Buttons cocoa dresses out of this fabric before, and I've also made a cashmerette concord out of it. So I must have bought about 3, maybe 4 meters because it was on offer, and I just had enough to make a t-shirt. So I thought, instead of sort of starting on brand new sort of fabrics, I wanted to use up a few of my pieces in my stash before I sort of moved on to any more projects. So Frankie t-shirt, same as I always tend to. I've actually got one on now. It has the raglan sleeves, and then I've modified the neckline to have the same neckline as the Agnes t-shirt because I don't like the neckline to be too high up. I did do a video on a Frankie t-shirt that was done in the style of Disney, and I'll leave a link up there because I do sort of explain more how I modify the neckline if you're interested. But it is basically the same as my normal Frankie t-shirts. This material actually though is a bit more of a sturdy one. Oh, Barbara's fallen into the wall a bit. It's a bit more of a sturdy one. It is a knit without the addition of any stretch, so I just made sure that I actually didn't use the same seam allowance. I reduced the seam allowance for this one just to give me a little bit more space, because it hasn't got that extra spandex or lycra in it. It doesn't stretch quite as much, so I just wanted to make sure it still looked nice and flattering. So I just actually ended up doing the side seams 1/4 of an inch instead, and it fits lovely. Really pleased with it. Initially when I cut the sleeves out, this is the only direction I could get the sleeves out of that piece of fabric that I had left, and I was a bit worried that I'd have to sort of make sure that all the stripes were matched up the side of the raglan. But actually it would be impossible to do every stripe, so I tried to match a few of them at intervals, but I don't think you can notice anyway. It's not a problem, and I don't mind, so who cares? So I did the neckline so that the stripes sort of go opposite direction to the main body of the t-shirt because I like that effect, and I've done a pretty poor job at matching the stripes down the side, but they're close enough. They're about 1/2 millimetre out, I think. So Barbara's going to lean towards you to show the fabric a little bit better. So you can see it's a striping material, and normally the sleeves would actually have the stripes going across here, but that's the only direction I could get the sleeves out of course. But I think it's a nice effect, and I don't mind that every bit isn't matched up on the raglan sleeve. I think that that's good enough for me, especially if I've made it out of scraps that wouldn't have been made up to a t-shirt, and just be laying in my stash. So thank you, Barbara. Can you do a quick change? Thank you, Barbara. So Barbara's now wearing my second Frankie t-shirt. This is a bit boring. It's just a plain grey fabric one. I just think I need more plain t-shirts in my wardrobe, just in case I want to put it with something that's a little bit more patterned on my legs, because obviously I don't want too much pattern everywhere. So it's a standard grey t-shirt, exactly the same shape as the last one, but I did keep to the standard size that I do rather than reducing the seam allowance at the side. This fabric is a lovely grey jersey from Stitchy Bee, and she's a lovely small business owner. She does quite a lovely range of different fabrics, so do go and have a look at her website as well. And she wraps everything up in lovely tissue paper in a bow, which is always lovely, I think. The fabric that I used on the last top was from Fabrics Galore, but they obviously don't have any more because it was a couple of years ago, but there we go. So that's my dressmaking for today. Sorry it's very quick and boring, but sometimes we just need to make those staple pieces to fit in our wardrobe. So thank you very much, Barbara. So I have some confessions. Shouldn't really be buying too much stuff, but there you go. This I thought would be a good comparison. So normally I use one of these, which is made by Cocoa Knits, and this is basically a ruler that I slap on my wrist, and it's got a magnet, and I put all my pins on. So you can see I've got all my pins that I use for sort of quilting and bag making on there, ready to use. And I thought, well, I could do with another one to put all my dressmaking pins on. So I purchased this one from Prim. And it's got a larger surface area, so I thought that'd be brilliant, because when I'm doing t-shirts and things, I tend to need more pins than I would for a bag, and it just looked nice and pink, bright pink. So I purchased this, but I do think that the it doesn't seem quite as good quality as this blue one from Cocoa Knits. The Prim one is a little bit more sort of, it's not quite as comfortable on the wrist for a start, and also I have to be really careful, because when if I slap it onto my wrist, the pins go flying, because there's not enough, it's not as magnetic, and it's a thinner piece of sort of a platform where you put the pins. This seems a lot sturdier and more comfortable, I think, but this one comes up at about £11, and I think this was 20 something, so it is a little bit cheaper. I think if I was going to recommend one that you were going to buy, I'd go for the Cocoa Knits one, to be honest. But now I've got it, it still works, it's just not quite as sturdy as the Cocoa Knits one. But I don't go around wearing them 2 at a time. Just to show you guys. I have I'm just taking this off really carefully, because I've had pins go flying all over the place, but it is handy having them on my wrist rather than having to take pins out of a box. So that's how they looked when they're sort of flattened, and then they just slap on your wrist. I'm not going to do it with this one because the pins will go flying, but again, it just goes like that. There are some pin cushions that sort of go on the wrist rather than it being a magnet, which I would like to try at some point, so I can sort of give you a review of that compared to these ones as well. But I will leave links to both of these products in the down bar. I picked this one up off Amazon, and I got this from the Loveliest Yarn Company, so I will leave links to both of those down below. But yeah, like I said, I have been using this for a week to sort of test it before I can tell you about it. So at least I have some information to chat about, rather than just have purchased it and it just arrived today. So I've also bought an English paper piecing book, and it's all Davina's fault from the Little Workroom Crafts podcast, because she was saying how good this was. So I've picked it up. I haven't had a proper look through it yet, to be honest, but I thought I would show you the page where it shows you all the projects, which I thought was quite handy. So there are some quilts in there, sort of abstract ones, more traditional, pin cushions, there's a little laptop, not a laptop, an iPad case, a little zipped pouch, a cushion, and then doing some English paper piecing around a frame. I think that's it. Or it might be a tray, actually. Well, it says photo frame, but it looks like a tray. But there's quite a few different projects in there. I don't know whether I'd do those exact projects, but I'd certainly use some of the shapes that they're in here. And another thing that I thought was quite nice is that they've got paper piece resources in the back, where there's triangle shapes and things, so that you can sort of use them as a design feature, really, and hexagons and things like that. I thought that was quite handy. And there's some pages of the different templates in the back as well, which is really nice. But like I said, I haven't had a proper look through it yet. I've had a couple of flick throughs, but I like to have a slow read of it as well. So that's that naughty purchase. But basically, that's Davina's fault. I also got these tiny little cutting mats. How cute are they? So they're a really small size, but they are big enough, I noticed, to put the little hexagon template that I was showing you last week on. So you could use this as a sort of portable cutting mat, so when you're out and about. So they seem quite thick. I haven't used them yet, but I shall see how that goes on. But just if I'm out and about and I've just got a little bag of little hexagons, I can just cut them on this little board. But I'm going to sort of review them and see how they are. But I picked these off eBay, and I'll leave a link in the down bar for them as well. So they came with a blue, green, a grey and a pink, and I think they were £4 in total, so they weren't very expensive. And you could also use them as coasters. Not sure whether they'd be that wide enough really, but very cute. So that's all the things that I've been buying this week. Well, the things that have arrived anyway. So it doesn't look too bad so far until next week. So I have a gadget for this week. It's actually sort of combined with the Ask Me Anything thread, because it was somebody who asked me on there how I stored my shawls after I showed them all on the shawl collection videos. So I use these hangers that you can use for trousers to put several shawls on at a time. To be honest, I need to have a bit of a sort out of the way I store these. I think I might have to buy a few more as well. I've got about 5 of these in my wardrobe at the moment. Some of them have got more than 2 shawls on each thing, but I could do with taking them off and sort of having to reorganise, but you get the idea. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 slats on each, and then I've got them tucked in so that I can hang them in the wardrobe, and at least I can see sort of what I've got. And this is the one that's sort of the blue collection. See, there's 2 tucked in there that are a bit tight really, so I do need to have a sort out. And this one has bowed slightly, so I think what I might do is invest in some sort of metal versions of these. But I think the idea of having a hanger with them on is a good idea though, so this is a good gadget. I have shown this as a gadget before, but as I had a question I thought it would be interesting to show you. But there we go, ta-da! There's a few of the shawls on there. So I've had a few questions from several people that have been asking me, can I show my shawl pins? So I have 3 shawl pins. I have a wooden one, which has got a lovely smooth disc of wood in a heart shape with a gorgeous sort of tactile wooden pin that goes in the centre. And I got this from the Nottingham Yarn Expo a couple of years ago, and I'm afraid I don't remember where it was from. If I can find it, I will put it in the show notes in the down bar or description bar. But isn't that lovely? I must have it somewhere written down in my show notes from when I purchased it. But that is a wooden one. Secondly, I have one that I purchased from, it's the shop that sells all the buttons at the shows, which can't remember off the top of my head, but I will put it on screen and in the down bar as well. But I do know where that's from at least. I got this from Edinburgh Yarn Festival, and it's basically like one of those giant pins like this, so you can actually close it up and it feels a bit more secure. And it's got like a little Celtic motif on the side. So that's my second one. And I also have a 3rd shawl pin, which is, I think this is probably the most intricate, and it's basically a bird and then a wiggly pin on the end, and I think this is absolutely gorgeous. This is from a company called GUL Designs, and I actually have found, I kept the card with it, where you can get it from. So they've got a number of lovely, really pretty designs there. So those are the 3 that I tend to use quite a bit, just so that the shawl doesn't sort of fall off. I didn't show them with my shawl collection because I was trying 31 on. I thought it would take me way too long to be adjusting these shawl pins for each and every one of those shawls. So the second question from the Ask Me Anything thread was from Claire, and she was asking, how do I use progress keepers? So you can see I've got a progress keeper marking here, and this is one from Jiggles and Beans, and it's a cute little ice cream there. And the purpose of this stitch marker is actually showing me, one, the beginning of the round, but also how much I've knitted, because from this point here I need to measure upwards, so that's another purpose. And she was asking me what my numbered progress keepers are for as well. So you might have to do so many increases on a sleeve, for instance, and you might want to just put a progress keeper in for each of the increases or decreases that you're doing on something, and then you don't have to count them every time. They're marked, they're numbered, it's easier to use. So I hope that explains, Claire, what well, that's at least what I use progress keepers for, and I hope you find that helpful. So I'm going to leave the rest of the Ask Me Anything questions until next week because we're running out of time today, but I will just do my shop update news now. So I have some new colourways. So my friend Helen, who lives not far away from me, but I haven't seen him forever, because we've not been allowed to actually see each other, but we've been messaging on Instagram, and she inspired me to do some colourways that were inspired by songs, because that's all my colourways are inspired by, but songs that are related to being in sort of isolation. It sounds a bit awful now I'm saying it on the podcast, but I just thought they were hilarious. I don't know why. So I've stuck to sort of spring colours for these ones, but I'd like to go through one by one with you. So we had such a giggle chatting about these song titles, so I'm going to go through them one by one and hopefully they'll make you smile as well. So the first one is called Behind the Mask. Obviously, because quite a few of us are wearing masks at the moment, and this song is by Fleetwood Mac, and I've got different splashes of green just to make a nice light and spring-like set of colourways really. So that's the first one. And then I've got I Want to Break Free, that's obviously by Queen, and this colourway is a pale turquoise colour. So the next one is You Can't Touch This, and it's grey and the turquoise that I showed you. It has some similarities to the Holding Out for the Hero colourway, but this is more turquoise rather than there's more greens in that one, and the lighter greys as well. So that's that one. I have Don't Stand So Close to Me, and this one has got the same turquoise but purple as well. So certainly we're not standing as close to people. So Don't Stand So Close to Me is by The Police, and this one is a pale tonal purple, and this was inspired by the Vera Lynn song We'll Meet Again, because we always have to be positive about these things. And then last of all we have From a Distance, which for some reason has really tickled me. Hopefully you can see that a little bit better. So there we go. So these are the new colourways. So they're the full skeins, but I thought that I'd offer these in mini sets as well. So here they are as a set of minis, and I've actually added this one here, this green one, because I thought it went well with the other greens, and that one's called Basket Case, which I've had out a little while. But that will be offered as a little mini set on my website this evening at 7 o'clock if you'd like to get hold of a set. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you'd like to see more, and I shall see you in the next episode. Bye!